Hi there, folks. Saber4 here. Back with just a quick one today, wanting to take a look at a couple of different interactions and things that we can do with the Legends of the Force Star Wars cards that are coming up. Um, these are going to look at some interesting payoffs, some interesting interactions, some other stuff like that. So, without much further ado, let's break some cards. We're going to start off by just kind of addressing the elephants in the room. Number one, Force Throw. We went from having several units, but not terribly many great places to play Force Throw. And it was such a tight window that the dominant deck that was playing this was really just Quinlan Voss. Now we have 165 units that can activate this. We have a huge, huge variety of things that are going to be able to pair with red and then get a one-cost Force Throw that you can Force Throw your opponent, make them give up something from their hand, and deal damage to something on their side of the table. So with that many things, this is going to be a gigantic skill check that comes with this card, and is obviously one of the biggest card interactions that kind of got broken with this set. The second one is going to be Han 2. And I honestly think this is going to be one of the biggest rising leaders as we see the Galactic Championships come up. In the last few weeks of actual meta play, Han 2 on both green and blue combined has been the highest played leader. The highest played single leader with a single type of deck has been Vader Yellow. Han 2 has been second, but split over a couple of bases. I expect that's going to continue, but that idea of, we already know how powerful it is to cheat out a unit. When you combine that with the new units just globally having a little larger health, plus the force payoffs like Force Throw being already in color, you can play Han 2. You know that Force Throw is going to be a 3 of in that deck, especially if you're playing Force. And we got a top end in that is coming out cheaper with the health pool that did not really diminish based on the fact that they are paying 2 damage to get it out early. So those are the two kind of biggest interactions in the room. Let's talk about some others, and just some of them are a little bit more niche interactions. Some of them take a little bit of setup, but I think are some of the coolest and possibly some of the most broken ways to play the game coming up in this next set. Number one, Darth Maul. Traditionally, the weakness of this Darth Maul card. Now, this is specific because this is Darth Maul. This is the 5 cost, 5/6, can attack 2 units instead of 1 Darth Maul. The weakness is that he's a lightning rod. And what I mean by that is that he does not have an immediate impact. Sure, you could ECL him and you can attack 2 things at once, but you do it at 5 cost. The only way to get anything really special out of this was to be playing the Darth Maul leader, and then you had to have that Darth Maul leader on the table so that everything already gained overwhelm, and then ambush him in, so you were delaying your ambush in order to set all this up. But other than that, he was a lightning rod. He's something that people are going to gravitate towards and try and remove before he can get down to the table and do some serious damage. Well, the fix. I have said from the beginning, I think the hidden mechanic is one of the strongest things that we got introduced. Yes, there are going to be a ton of force payoffs, but that force token mechanic is probably going to find itself... There are going to be times that force mechanic finds itself to be quite clunky. The hidden mechanic, and especially off of Third Sister, is incredibly active because this is something that happens without having to give up tempo. And so being able to give Darth Maul hidden on Third Sister's flip turn and put this unit on the table paired with any other color because he's already in aspect for Third Sister means that on that flip turn, I can put down 2 different 5 attack units, both of them hidden, and force you to have to deal with it. Do you want to... You can't attack either one. Do you want to try and play around Maul? Do you want to try and play around Third Sister? Either of them could swing at base for 5. on the next turn, or even Third Sister swing at base for 5 on this turn. But if you don't take the opportunity to get rid of Maul immediately, you threaten something gigantic, because Darth Maul's lightsaber is a tempo play. You attach it to that friendly non-vehicle unit, in this case Darth Maul, and when the attached unit is Darth Maul, you may attack with him. Well, we already know that he can attack 2 units. We can attack 2 units as a 9/8 with Overwhelm. And so, sure, I don't care that he can't attack the base. If you've got a unit in front of me, I can blow through 2 of them and overwhelm both of them, because nothing at that 5 cost is going to have a health pool big enough to stop him. So this is a big time tempo play, and Hidden really turns this on. And so this is an interaction that I think is going to be quite powerful, and some people are going to wind up using in a deck that becomes aggressive, and then on that 5 turn, forces you to deal with something gigantic, so that it doesn't just kill you outright on the 6. Keller Beck. What's his weakness? This is a new card. This is not something that we're looking at that we tried to play in or tried to play around. He is a very, very powerful play, even at 7. But the weakness here is that he does not have any kind of ambush. He doesn't have an immediate board impact other than being able to play out another unit. Tutoring in a unit is very strong, but at 7 cost, we don't have a direct board impact unless he manages to drop a Sentinel. How do we get around this? Several ways. Timely Intervention, Shi and Flurry can both bring him in with ambush, although that raises his cost. Or you can discount entry, and there are several ways to do that. I mentioned Hantu at the beginning. He's going to be a way that breaks several things. This is one of them. Bringing him in for 6 and getting 9 of value out of him is going to be much, much more powerful than bringing him in for 7. You get a 7/5 for that, and that's perfectly fine. However, that's not the biggest way you can bring him in. With the amount of things that are Jedi, Force, or Republic, it is very easy to build around a yellow-green deck that plays now there are 2 of them. You also have the Jedi Consular that is in his color, and the Jedi Consular could bring in, at a discount, bring him in for 5. You could also run a card that's going to be in this slideshow. You could run the General's Blade and bring him in at a lower cost. So, how we work with Keller and Beck to make him go from being a very powerful 7/7/4/7 is to make him a 7/7/4/6, or in some cases a 4/5. And that is a close lightning strike. And to just reduce his cost and bring him in a way that makes him more board impact right now. The Bring Offend on this is gigantic. This is a huge play and is going to see a lot of play in Green Hero. So it's not like this guy's going to be out in the cold if you're playing him for 7, but bringing him in under that and gaining that value, especially even on 7 resources to play 4 of value, because he just discounts a card. He doesn't make it where you have to get 3 or less and that's all you can play like Vader did. You got a lot of room to work with here. Next up is the General's Blade. The weakness prior was that there were only 4 Jedi units in green. Sure, you could play other colors and get some more Jedi, but prior to Legends of the Force, you only had 4 that lined up directly with the General's Blade. There were only 4 total that you could access with Villainy. One of them was a double green. And so you had a very, very limited pool of what's going on. The fix here is that there are 33 new Jedi non-vehicle units. And so if green is your second color, or if it is your leader color and you're splashing with something else, you have access to a much, much deeper pool and are going to wind up in a very open method of going through and getting discounted units. Let's say you play Jedi Consular as well, which is already in color, already an aspect here. Well, you get out Jedi Consular, you get out something else, you put General's Blade on it. Once you have swung a unit with the General's Blade, you can then also further discount a unit in with Consular. So as 2 actions, you could bring out a 9 cost on your 5 resource turn. So you can, you're 1 above the cost requirement for Yoda. Han2 green, same idea. You can swing a unit that's got General's Blade, follow it up with Han 2, and bring in something that is further discounted by 1. Bring out Yoda on 5 resources at the same turn that you're bringing out Han, which would allow you to put Han down first, bring out Yoda, use the Force, and have the extra unit on the table. So a lot of things that you can do with the General's Blade here. Another card up, the Grand Inquisitor. Previous weakness for him was a small stats on 6. He's a 3/6 on 6, which was not wonderful. And he's kind of slow. And so, we're in a position with him where you're having to damage your own units in order to use his ability. And they're kind of smaller because they have to have 3 power or less. And then you enabled value trading. And so your opponents could just kind of flash in, get those units traded out that you have damaged. And there wasn't a way, all your opponents had to do was stall long enough, create a few of those trades, and kind of break through. And then once you had sort of exhausted your tricks, go ahead and push on through to wins. Well, now we got the Grand Inquisitor unit. In addition to some other Inquisitor aid, the Grand Inquisitor unit, while hidden himself, also allows, while he stays on the table, any other Inquisitor units gain hidden. And so if you are playing Inquisitor units, you can plop them down, know that they cannot be attacked. Your opponent cannot just value trade back into them, and you can do the damage, take their swing at base. Even though you're going to be playing without initiative, you have the ability to really go ahead and pop. It doesn't work with the biggest help that they got, which is Paz Vizsla. Although he is in double red is perfectly fine to play with Grand Inquisitor. But he can swing for 7 on his deploy turn. You plop him down, you ready him with Grand Inquisitor, you do 2 damage to him. He is basically double grit. And so that 2 damage adds 4 to his power. So that also forces your opponent to kind of deal with him, because do I take the 7 from Paz Vizsla, or do I put something into him and damage him while he is a 3 power so that the Grand Inquisitor player cannot ready him? Another thing that we got that's a big help were just the general force payoffs. See, these are cards that, sometimes had utility, and some places, used them a little bit better than others. Force Choke has always been a favorite of mine for anti-Sabine if I'm playing Red Villainy, even if I'm not playing a Force deck, just because it dealt with her cleanly. But now the discount of Force Choke is going to be a much easier thing to do. The ability to turn on Force Lightning is going to be much easier to do. It binds all things. Being able to kind of fling damage around. This is going to be a big play in the Han Blue, I'd imagine, because if you have Han Blue Force, you're going to control a Force unit. You're bringing them in damaged already. You deal 2 damage to an enemy unit, and you heal 3 damage from your unit. So nice, easy way to keep your units up and ticking. And then finally, the forces with me got extensive use in Churret, but a little bit more limited use elsewhere. With the volume of force units that are there, this is a great play at 4 to give 2 experience tokens to something and a shield and then attack. It's a tempo play that gives a lot of value to your cards already on the table. Last up, just a few little thoughts, and some of these are going to be more useful than others. You saw a leader, you were playing with a leader, did you think of this card? I've played against several Kylo Ren decks that are trying to turn on Anakin Skywalker by throwing away a heroism upgrade. Not once have I seen them throw away brutal traditions. For the life of me, I cannot figure out why. If I can filter through upgrades, I want an upgrade that I will be able to bring back to other units that are not Kylo Ren. So if you have defeated an enemy unit this phase, you can play this upgrade from your discard pile, which means that you can filter it, draw a card, defeat an enemy unit, put this thing back onto one of your units. And it doesn't matter how you defeated it, whether they attacked into one of your units and your unit survived the attack. If you played a control card and got rid of one of their units, doesn't matter how it happened. If you defeated a unit, you may play this on a card that does not bind it to playing on Kylo Ren. Sabine. I have effectively swapped away from playing with Darksaber in most of my Sabine decks in favor of playing Yoda's lightsaber. Part of the reason for that is that it shares the heroic aspect, and so it allows me to play for a cause I believe in without having to worry about hitting a Darksaber. The other thing that I've got there is that it allows me to dirtle a little bit more in that phase and to have some more room in between in between the start of the turn and needing to flip Sabine. Being able to churn actions on that turn is very valuable, and being able to churn actions by deploying a 2 cost and still having an upgrade that I can put on Sabine that does, yes, it does 1 less damage than the Darksaber, perfectly fine. It allowed me to play another unit. I'm going to get that damage back very quickly. I'm more than okay with that. And finally, a very underused leader. Have you considered Anakin Skywalker with Nala Se? Nala Se is already blue. Pairing her with green has been quite a powerful combination when you do it. She's going to use clones. The Sifo Dyas unit allows you to go and fetch clones and pour several of them onto the table at once. Those clones are, by and large, heroic units. Nala Se is a villainy leader, and that allows you access to things like Power of the Dark Side or Overwhelming Barrage if you choose to go green. It's a wise choice to make, considering that you also have things like the General's Blade. Well, after running through a couple of those and letting a couple of clones use Nala Se's ability, you're going to have full power and full reign of Anakin Skywalker's ability at 6. We know there are several other big interactions that we're going to have. I didn't put some of them on the screen because some of them are things like Darth Vader with ambush. Yes, nice, big, clean 3-for-1. We changed a lot in this set. A lot of the power that is in this set seems to be focused on things that are somewhat specific interactions, but very interested to see it played. Very happy to be moving along with it. Super interested to see what it does and how it plays out over the couple of weeks prior to the Galactic Championships, and to see if any adjustments need to be made afterwards. But here are some, like I said, some good interactions that are kind of fun to play with and that I have messed with in testing with some degrees of success and just wanted to share. So until next time, thanks so much for watching.